Welcome, friends. Picture a place where temperatures drop to -50, where there are no trees for firewood, where the ground is ice, kilometers thick. Most people would die there in an hour, without preparation. But the indigenous Inuit didn't just survive in the Arctic. They thrived for thousands of years. We're examining a survival system that turned one of Earth's most hostile environments into home. How did people without metal, without wood, without plant food, create technologies that let them hunt whales, build houses from snow, and stay healthy on a diet of pure fat and meat? But wait, first, get comfortable. Seriously, fix your pillows. Grab your blanket. Now take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I'm doing here. And write in the comments, could you survive a week at -40 with only bone tools and your own ingenuity? Where are you listening from? And what time is it? Let's begin our journey into a world where every mistake cost a life, and every decision was an engineering masterpiece. Let's start with the simplest question. How do you build a house from something that's trying to kill you? Snow at -30 sounds insane, right? But the Inuit understood something that would take us a physics textbook to learn. Compressed snow isn't cold, it's insulation. Picture thousands of tiny air pockets trapped between ice crystals. The air doesn't move, and still air, one of nature's best insulators. Your modern thermal windows work on the same principle. The Inuit just invented it several thousand years earlier. An igloo was built from the inside out. Snow blocks cut in a spiral pattern, each tilted slightly inward. The dome shape wasn't random. It's the most stable structure without a frame. Each block supports its neighbor. No nails, no wood, just geometry and understanding forces. The cutting process? You use a long bone knife, sawing through snow like it's cake. The sound is crispy, satisfying, like cutting dense foam. Your hands freeze through mittens. Each block weighs about 40 pounds. Building a 2-person igloo takes 1 to 2 hours. If you're slow, you freeze before finishing. Now the cleverest part. The entrance is always below floor level. Always. Why? Cold air is heavier than warm air. It flows downward like water into a drain. If the entrance is at floor level, heat escapes outside. If the entrance is below, cold stays trapped and heat collects above, where you sleep. The smell inside an igloo? Damp snow, smoke from the whale oil lamp, and that heavy musky scent of soaked fur. Not perfume, but it's the smell of survival. But the igloo is only the first part of the system. Without the second element, you'd still freeze to death. If the igloo is the heat container, the quillic is its source. Without it, you'd just slowly freeze in your snow fortress. The quillic looked simple, a flat stone bowl, whale or seal blubber inside, a wick from dried moss or sinew. But this simplicity was the result of centuries of engineering. Picture a single source of heat, light, and ability to melt water at -40. No other choice. The lamp goes out, you die. Not a metaphor, reality. Whale blubber burns long, very long, much longer than any wood, if there was wood. The caloric value of pure fat, about 9,000 calories per kilogram. For comparison, wood gives about 4,000. Nature gave the Inuit the best fuel. You just had to risk your life to get it. The temperature inside an igloo with a working quillic? From 0 to +5 degrees Celsius. Sounds cold? Try -40 outside. A difference of 45 degrees. That's the difference between life and death. Managing a quillic is an art. Flame too high, you waste fat and risk fire. Too low, you freeze. Women adjusted the wick with special sticks all day long, every few minutes. It's like adjusting a thermostat, only if you get it wrong, it's not just discomfort, death. Now the unpleasant part. Fat burns, but it also stinks. Acrid smoke eats your eyes. Soot settles on everything. Your face is constantly covered in a thin layer of black residue. You breathe this smoke every day, for years. Inuit lungs adapted. Yours wouldn't last a week. But even the warmest igloo with the brightest lamp won't save you if your clothing fails. Here's a question. How do you stay warm when your body temperature is 36.6 and it's -40 outside? The math is simple. You lose. Always. Unless you cheat physics. The Inuit wore 2 layers of fur. First layer, fur against skin. Second layer, fur facing outward. Why? Because an air cushion formed between them. Again, that still air, the best insulator. Imagine your down jacket. Now imagine 2 down jackets, one inside the other. But instead of synthetic down, natural caribou fur. Each hair of caribou fur is hollow inside. Literally thousands of tiny air tubes. It's like wearing thousands of mini thermoses on your body. The weight of such a set? About 15 to 20 pounds. Uncomfortable? You're still alive. You're still alive. That's comfortable. Now, the most important part. Caribou fur doesn't absorb water. Almost not at all. If you fall into water during ice hunting, and it happens, the fur doesn't become a wet bag that freezes you. It sheds water. You shake off the snow, and you're dry again. Sewing such clothing? Women used bone needles and sinew thread. Every seam had to be perfectly tight. One missed stitch, a hole for wind. Wind at -30 finds every gap, like water finds a crack in a dam. And if wind penetrates inside, your air cushion collapses. You start freezing fast. The smell? Musky, oily, slightly sweet aroma of animal fur, mixed with your own sweat, which never fully evaporates. Not pleasant, but it's the smell of what keeps you alive. But there's a problem nobody thinks about until it's too late. Here's what nobody understands about the Arctic. Cold won't kill you. Moisture will. Sounds strange? Think about it. You're inside an igloo. Temperature is +2. You're wearing 2 layers of fur. You start moving, cooking food, repairing tools. Your body produces heat. You sweat. Sweat soaks into the fur. The fur becomes damp. Damp fur loses its insulating properties almost completely. Those air pockets we talked about, they fill with water. And water conducts heat 30 times faster than air. Now imagine stepping outside, -35. The damp fur freezes instantly. You're not wearing insulation anymore. You're wearing a refrigerator, literally. Your body tries to heat ice that's stuck to your skin. The Inuit knew this, so an igloo always had a ventilation hole at the dome's peak. Always. Even when it's -40 outside. This seems insane, letting cold air inside. But moist air has to escape somewhere. Otherwise, it condenses on the walls, on your clothing, on your skin. Moisture control is a constant battle. You dry clothing over the kulik every evening. Slowly, carefully. Too close, the fur burns. Too far, it doesn't dry. And the smell? Burning fur mixed with sweat and whale oil smoke. Like someone burned a wig in a dumpster at a fish market. Women checked every child's clothing, every hunter's gear before going outside. Fingers sliding over seams, searching for dampness. One damp seam could cost a finger or a life. But even dry clothing won't save your feet if you don't understand the next principle. Your feet are the weakest link, always. Why? Because they touch the ground. And the ground in the Arctic is ice at -30, or snow at -40. Even through the thickest sole, cold seeps upward, like water through a sponge. The comic isn't just a boot, it's a 3-layer engineering system. First layer, inner boot from soft sealskin, worn fur side in. Between your foot and the fur, grass, dry grass. Why grass? Because it absorbs sweat but stays dry to the touch. It's like wearing a tiny dehumidifier on each foot. Second layer, outer boot from thick walrus hide, waterproof, durable. Between inner and outer boot, an air cushion. Again, see the pattern? Air, everywhere, air. Third layer, sometimes they added another layer of caribou fur on top, if traveling far for hunting. It's like wearing 3 pairs of socks. Only each sock weighs 2 pounds. Walking in comics, uncomfortable, heavy, feet tire quickly. But you feel the ice beneath. You feel where it's thin, where it's thick. This matters. Modern boots insulate you from the surface. Comics give you information that can save your life. Every evening, you had to dry the comics, change the grass, check seams for damage. One torn seam, and ice water seeps inside. Wet feet at -30. Frostbite in 20 minutes. Loss of toes, if you're lucky. loss of foot if you're not. The smell? Damp fur, sweaty feet, rotting grass, and that specific aroma of walrus hide, which smells like a mix of fish and old cheese. Attractive? No. Functional? Absolutely. But all these systems, igloo, quillic, Atigi, comic, only work together. And there's one more critical element many people miss. Here's the final piece of the puzzle. Where do you sleep in an igloo? On the floor? Wrong answer. You'd freeze, even with a quillic, even in an Atigi. The Inuit built a raised platform, always, from snow covered with hides. Height? About 20 to 24 inches above the floor. Why exactly that height? Physics. Warm air rises, cold air sinks. At floor level, the temperature might be -5, even with a working quillic. At platform level, +2, +5. A difference of 7 degrees, just because you sleep half a meter higher. Picture a 3-layer cake made of air. Bottom layer, frozen. Middle layer, cold. Top layer, warm. You want to live in the top layer, always. The platform also insulated from ice below. Ice pulls heat from your body, even through fur, even through hides. The air gap under the platform created a barrier. Not perfect, but sufficient. Sleeping on the platform. You lie under hides, listening to wind outside. Sometimes you hear ice cracking, or a wolf howling. The quillic hisses quietly. The air smells of smoke, fur, and people who haven't bathed in months. Not romantic, but you're alive, and that's all that matters. In the morning, the platform is covered in frost from your breath. Your body released moisture all night. The moisture rose and froze on the ceiling. Tiny ice crystals hang like stars. Beautiful, but also a reminder. Moisture is the enemy, always. Now you understand the system. The igloo protects from wind. The quillic provides heat. The Atigi and comic insulate your body. The platform lifts you into the warm zone. Ventilation removes moisture. Everything together, or nothing. But even the most perfect system for protecting from cold is useless if your body has no fuel. Here's a puzzle. 18th century sailors died from scurvy after months without fruit. The Inuit lived thousands of years without any plant food and were healthy. How? The answer was hidden in what Europeans considered unfit for consumption: raw liver, whale skin, seal eyes. What modern nutritionists would call offal, the Inuit called food. Vitamin C breaks down at temperatures above 60 degrees Celsius. If you cook muscle meat, vitamin C disappears. But if you eat raw seal liver, it contains about 30 milligrams of vitamin C per 100 grams. That's almost as much as an orange. Muktuk, whale skin with a thin layer of blubber, looks like pink-white chunks of rubber. The taste? Nutty, fatty, slightly sweet. The texture? Like chewing a car tire, only juicier. And it has vitamin C, nature's multivitamin. You just need teeth to chew it. European explorers saw this. They wrote in journals, "Savages eat raw meat." They didn't understand. This isn't savagery. This is biochemistry. The Inuit solved a problem that took the British Navy 300 years, just by listening to their bodies. Now the unpleasant part. Raw liver smells. Sharp metallic scent of blood, mixed with ammonia. When you cut open a seal, the blood is warm, steaming in the frozen air. You eat the liver immediately, while it's warm, because tomorrow it'll freeze, and you'll have to chip off pieces like ice. But liver isn't everything. The real miracle is in fat. Imagine your body is a furnace, constantly burning, 24 hours a day. At minus 35, your body burns about 4,000 to 5,000 calories per day, just to not freeze. 4,000 calories. That's 8 Big Macs every day, just to exist. The Inuit solved this simply. They ate pure fat, not as a condiment, not as a supplement, as the main food. 1 gram of fat, 9 calories. 1 gram of protein or carbs, 4 calories. The math is simple. If you need to carry all your food during hunting, you want the most energy-dense food. Fat wins, always. Seal blubber, whale fat, walrus fat. The Inuit ate it in chunks, like you'd eat cheese. Or spread it on raw meat, like you'd spread butter on bread. It's like carrying a portable charging station for your body, only instead of a USB port, your stomach. The taste of pure fat depends on the animal. Seal blubber, light, slightly fishy. Whale fat, richer, almost sweet. Walrus fat, heaviest, oily. Leaves a film on your tongue that doesn't disappear for hours. European explorers tried to copy the Inuit diet. Most gave up after a week. Their bodies couldn't digest that much fat. Diarrhea, nausea, exhaustion. But the Inuit? Their bodies adapted over thousands of years. Their livers produced more bile. Their metabolism worked differently. The smell? Imagine a fish market multiplied by 10. Fat oxidizes in air. Your hands, face, clothing, everything covered in a thin, greasy film. You can't wash it off. There's no soap, no warm water. You just live with that smell. It becomes part of you. But even with unlimited fat, there's a problem. Where do you store it when you've killed a 5-ton whale? Killing a seal is only half the work. Preserving the meat, that's the real challenge. At -30, meat freezes rock solid in an hour. Sounds like an advantage? Not quite. Frozen meat has 2 problems. First, polar bears. Second, Arctic foxes. Both can smell meat from miles away, and they will come. The Inuit built caches, underground storage in permafrost. Digging a hole in frozen ground, it's like chipping concrete with a bone knife. The process took days, but once dug, you had a natural freezer that worked forever. Cache depth? 1 to 1.5 meters. Deep enough that bears can't smell it. Deep enough that temperature stays stable, even in summer when the surface thaws. Meat was laid in layers. First, fat, the most valuable. Then muscles. Then bones. On top, large stones. Lots of stones. Bears are strong, but even they don't want to dismantle a stone pyramid for possible food. Picture this, like a crypto wallet. Only instead of bitcoins, hundreds of pounds of frozen seal. And instead of a password, your memory of exactly where you buried it in a white desert where everything looks the same. Sometimes caches weren't found. Snow covered markers. Or they simply forgot the exact location. Archaeologists still find ancient Inuit caches. The meat inside preserved perfectly. Thousands of years in nature's freezer. The smell when opening a cache. Meat is cold, but not odorless. That heavy, musky scent of frozen flesh, mixed with earth and stone. Then you have to chip off pieces. Meat so hard that sparks fly when you hit it. But sometimes meat was stored differently. In a way Europeans considered disgusting. Here's something nobody tells you about the Arctic. Sometimes fresh meat isn't the best option. Why? Because fermented meat is easier to digest. It contains enzymes that help your stomach break down protein. And when your diet is 90% protein and fat, any help for your stomach matters. Kiviak, the most famous dish. Here's how it works. You take a seal carcass, remove the meat but leave the skin. Then stuff the skin with whole seabirds, hundreds of birds. Sew it up, place under stones, wait 6 to 8 months. What happens inside? Fermentation. Enzymes from the bird's intestines break down tissues. Bones become soft. Meat transforms into a paste-like mass. It's like natural preservation, only without a can. The taste? Sharp, sour, intense. Imagine the strongest cheese you've ever smelled. Multiply by 10. Add notes of fish. The texture? Like thick yogurt, only with feathers and small bones. Europeans who saw this were shocked. Rotten food, they wrote. They didn't understand. This isn't rotting. This is controlled fermentation. The difference is the same as between wine and vinegar. A question of control. But why ferment if you can freeze? Because frozen meat is hard. Hard on your teeth, hard on your stomach. But fermented meat, soft, easy to chew, even with worn teeth. Critically important for old people who, in a survival society, can't just be written off. The smell when opening kiviak. Imagine someone left fish in a car trunk in summer for 2 months. Then add ammonia. Your eyes water. But for the Inuit, this is the smell of food, the smell of survival. And here's a question Europeans never even thought about. Heat kills quickly. Cold kills slowly. But you know what kills fastest? Dehydration. Seems absurd, right? You're surrounded by water everywhere. Snow, ice, ocean. But all that water is either frozen or salty. Try eating snow at -30. What happens? Your body has to melt it. This requires energy, a lot of energy. 1 kilogram of snow needs about 160 calories to heat to body temperature. That's like eating half a burger to get a glass of water. The math doesn't work. You spend more energy than you get water, And if you lose too much energy, you freeze faster. Ocean water, even worse. 3% salt. Your kidneys can't process that concentration. They try to excrete the salt using more water than you drank. You drank ocean water and become more dehydrated. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. The Inuit solved this with the kulik. Remember the lamp? It didn't just heat. It melted ice, slowly, constantly. Water collected in a stone bowl. But here's the trick. You can't drink ice-cold water, literally 0 degrees. If you drink a liter of ice water, your body has to heat it to 37 degrees. That's another 70 calories lost. Not lethal, but if you're already on the edge, it could be decisive. So water was heated, not to boiling, that wastes fat, just to room temperature, lukewarm water. The taste? Slightly fishy from the quillic, sometimes with a hint of smoke. But it doesn't steal your energy. It gives life. And in summer, when snow melted, water collected in puddles on the ice. Fresh water, but brown from algae tannins. The taste is swampy, but it's better than snow, and much better than dying of thirst in an ocean of frozen water around you. But even perfect diet and hydration don't explain everything. Inuit bodies were different. Here's something science only understood recently. The Inuit were physiologically different from Europeans, not racially, evolutionarily. Thousands of years in the Arctic created selection pressure. Those whose bodies couldn't efficiently metabolize fat didn't survive, didn't have children. Their genes disappeared. What remained? People whose livers were fat-processing machines. Modern studies show the Inuit have higher basal temperature in extremities. Their hands and feet stay warmer under the same conditions as Europeans. Why? More efficient peripheral circulation. The body doesn't sacrifice extremities as quickly. Picture this like the difference between an old and new smartphone in cold. The old one shuts down at 0. The new one works at -20. Same function, better adaptation to conditions. But there's a price. High-calorie diet means high risk of cardiovascular problems in the modern world. When the Inuit switched to Western diet, their bodies didn't know what to do with carbohydrates. Diabetes, obesity, heart disease. Bodies optimized for one environment break in another. and subcutaneous fat thickness? Traditional Inuit had more, not from overeating, from adaptation. Extra insulation built into the body. It's like wearing a natural wetsuit 24 hours a day. There's also evidence of changes in sweat glands. The Inuit sweated less under the same loads. Less sweat, less moisture in clothing, less risk of freezing. Evolution tuned every detail. Body odor? Different. High-fat diet changes sweat chemistry. More ketones, which gives a slightly sweet, almost fruity smell. Mixed with smoke, fur, and sea, it created a unique aroma of an Inuit that Europeans described in journals, usually negatively. But all these adaptations, diet, metabolism, physiology, would be useless without one thing. Without the ability to regularly obtain food in conditions where it's actively trying to kill you. Hunting in the Arctic isn't about speed. It's about patience. Insane, inhuman patience. A seal breathes. Obviously, right? But in the Arctic, the ice is 2 meters thick. The seal can't break through. So it uses old holes, breathing holes, a glute. The diameter of a typical igloo? 15 to 20 centimeters. Across tens of square kilometers of ice, there might be dozens of such holes. Your job? Find the one the seal uses. Then wait for hours. The Inuit found a glute by snow. Seal breath is warm. It melts snow around the hole. A tiny depression, barely visible. But if you know what to look for, it stands out like a beacon. Now imagine the process. -35, wind. You're standing over a hole with a harpoon. Not sitting, standing. Because if you sit, your body cools. If you move, the seal hears vibrations through ice. Seals hear better than bats use echolocation. Wait time? 2 hours, 4, sometimes 8. You don't know when the seal will come, or if it'll come at all. It's like waiting for a video to load on bad internet. Only if you give up, your family doesn't eat today. The sound when a seal approaches? First, nothing. Then, quiet water gurgling under the ice. Your heart speeds up, harpoon raised, muscles tense. One chance, one. The seal surfaces. A second, 2. You strike, not at the head, It's too small. At the neck, the shoulders, the harpoon pierces skin, fat, muscle. The seal jerks, tries to go underwater, but the harpoon has barbs and a line tied to your arm. Now the real work begins. Pulling 200 pounds of seal through an 8-inch hole in ice at -30, hands trembling from adrenaline and cold. But you pull, because if you lose it, you might not see another for a week. The smell of fresh blood on snow, metallic, sharp, and steaming in cold air like dragon's breath. The seal is dead. You're alive. Your family eats. Today is a victory. But one seal feeds a family for a few days. For real security, you need more. If the Inuit were a startup, the harpoon would be their MVP, minimum viable product. That literally ensures viability. A harpoon isn't just a spear. It's a 3-component system: shaft, point, line. Each element critical. The shaft, wooden if you're lucky enough to find driftwood, otherwise bone. Length about 2 meters. Weight has to be perfect. Too light doesn't penetrate. Too heavy tires your arm. It's like adjusting mouse sensitivity in a game. Only if the settings are wrong, you're hungry. The point. Here's where the magic happens. It's not permanently attached to the shaft. It's connected through a loop. When you hit a seal, the point rotates and gets stuck sideways in the body. Try pulling out a hook that's stuck sideways. Impossible. A line is tied to the point. Length up to 30 meters. Material? Sinew. Walrus or whale sinew. Strength? Holds up to 400 pounds of tension. It's like having a Kevlar rope, only made from parts of animals you killed last season. At the end of the line, a float, inflated seal bladder. Why? Because if the seal dives under ice, the bladder doesn't let it escape. It exhausts itself, surfaces, and you wait. It's like having a GPS tracker on your prey, only it works on physics, not satellites. Creating one harpoon? Days of work, carving bones, processing sinew, balancing weight. It's like assembling a precision instrument with bare hands at -20. The smell. Sinew soaked in water smells like rotting flesh. Bones smell of marrow that couldn't be completely cleaned out. But when the harpoon is ready, it's the most valuable object you own, more precious than any diamond, because it gives life. But even the best harpoon is useless if you can't get close to prey. On land, you're slow. On ice, you're careful. But on water, you need an engineering miracle. The kayak, length about 5 meters, width half a meter, weight 60 pounds, can carry a person, weapons, and 200 pounds of meat, and it's practically unsinkable. Frame from driftwood or bones, covering from sealskins, every seam sewn with sinew and sealed with fat, not a drop of water inside. If the kayak flips, and it flips, you do an Eskimo roll. One paddle motion returns the kayak upright, without exiting. Why is it so important not to exit the kayak in water? Because Arctic water is 2 degrees Celsius. You have a minute, maybe 2, before losing consciousness from cold. 3 to 4 minutes until death. If you're in water, you're dead. If you're in the kayak, you have a chance. Kayak speed? Up to 5 miles per hour. Sounds slow? A seal in water is fast, but a kayak is quiet, almost silent. You approach upwind, so the seal doesn't smell you. You paddle to within 15 feet. The harpoon flies. Paddling in a kayak is meditation and terror simultaneously. The water is black, cold. Sometimes you see shadows below. Whale, orca. The unknown is scarier than knowledge. But you paddle, because without food from the sea, you don't survive. The feeling of balance in a kayak, it's like riding a bicycle on a tightrope. One sharp move, you flip. A wave from the side, you flip. But after years of practice, the body knows. Muscles react faster than thoughts. The smell inside the kayak, wet skins, fish, salt, and that specific smell of fat used to seal seams, rancid, sharp. But it's the smell of safety, because the kayak is the difference between hunting and starvation. But a kayak is for one person. For big prey, you need a team. Forget cute house pets. Arctic dogs are working machines. Tough, enduring, and sometimes dangerous. A typical Inuit dog? Weight 100 pounds. Thick double coat. Blue or mismatched eyes. Ability to work at -50. Not because they want to, because they have to. A team? 8 to 12 dogs. Each dog pulls 60 to 80 pounds. Together, about 800 pounds of cargo on a sled. It's like having a truck that runs on meat instead of gasoline. Speed? Up to 12 miles per hour on flat surface. But the real value isn't speed. It's navigation. Dogs sense thin ice. They hear cracks you won't hear. They stop when ice is dangerous. It's like having a danger sensor, only with teeth. At night, during a blizzard, you see nothing. White desert in all directions. But the dogs know the way home. How? Nobody knows for sure. Smell? Magnetic field? Instinct? Doesn't matter. They know. And you trust them. Because the alternative is freezing somewhere in white oblivion. But dogs aren't friends. They're partners. They fight each other for hierarchy. They'll steal food if they can. Sometimes, if very hungry, they'll eat each other. Or try to eat you if you die first. Feeding dogs, frozen fish, meat, fat, whatever's left after humans eat. Dogs don't eat daily, sometimes once every 2 to 3 days. They're adapted to hunger, like everything else here. The smell of dogs, wet fur, fish, excrement frozen to tails. But at night, when it's -40 and wind howls, dogs lie around you. Their warmth keeps you alive. You breathe their smell and fall asleep knowing you won't freeze by morning. But even dogs won't help with the biggest hunt. One seal feeds a family. One whale feeds a village. The bowhead whale, weight up to 200,000 pounds, length up to 60 feet, blubber thickness up to 20 inches. It's a floating food warehouse that can kill you with one tail fluke. Whale hunting isn't for one person, it's for 10, 20. It's a military operation. Only instead of tanks, kayaks. Instead of cannons, harpoons. Preparation, weeks of observation. When do whales migrate? Where do they surface? What routes? It's like hacker reconnaissance. Only the target weighs more than 10 elephants. Hunt day. The team goes out before dawn. Kayaks lined up, waiting. When the whale surfaces, everyone attacks simultaneously. Dozens of harpoons, some with floats. The whale dives, but the floats slow it down. It exhausts itself. For hours, the team pursues the whale. Sometimes half a day. The whale weakens, surfaces more often, less time underwater. Finally, it stops moving. Now, the real challenge, delivering 200,000 pounds of meat to shore. Kayaks tied to the carcass. The team rows, all together, synchronized. It's like towing a cruise ship with paddles. On shore, the whole village, men, women, children, everyone cuts. Everyone receives a share, not by merit, not by status, by need. The old, widows, orphans, everyone eats when there's a whale. The smell of butchering a whale? Blood, lots of blood. Ocean mixed with fat. Intestines tens of meters long. The air is heavy with the smell of flesh, but it's a happy smell, the smell of prosperity. One whale? That's 6 months of food, fuel for quillix, bones for tools, village survival until next spring. But not all hunting is this dramatic. Sometimes you don't need a harpoon. Sometimes you need cunning. Arctic foxes, ptarmigans, hares. Not big prey, but their fur is valuable, especially fox. White Arctic fox fur, the warmest, better than caribou for hoods. Traps were built from stones, simple construction. A large flat stone balanced on a smaller one. Underneath, bait, frozen fish, a piece of meat. The fox pulls the bait. The stone falls. Weight about 100 pounds. Instant death. Trap placement? That's science. Foxes walk certain routes. They're not random. They're logical. Shortest distance between dens and food. You study tracks. Find path crossings. Set trap there. Checking traps? Once every few days, sometimes a week. If a fox is in the trap, you collect it. If not, you leave it. It's passive income. Only instead of dividends, fur. Ptarmigans were hunted differently. They flock. Where there's one, there are 20. Nets from sinew, stretched between stones. Ptarmigans fly low, right into the net. You collect 10 birds at once. Ptarmigan taste? Gamey, meaty, darker than chicken. But when you've eaten only seal for months, ptarmigan is variety. It's like eating something other than pizza after a week of pizza for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Hares? Rare but valuable. Their meat is the softest, their fur the lightest. Children learn to hunt hares, not with harpoons, with slings. A stone in a leather loop. You spin it, throw. If you hit, dinner. If not, a lesson. The smell of traps? Old bait meat, snow, blood from previous catches. But when you open a trap and see a dead fox, it's the smell of success. Small, but success. And all these technologies, harpoons, kayaks, dogs, traps, would be useless without the final component, without knowledge of how to use it all. In the Arctic, there's no Google, no Wikipedia, no quick search how to make harpoon. If you don't know how to find an igloos, you're hungry. If you don't know how to build an igloo, you're dead. If you don't know which ice is safe, you drown. Knowledge isn't a nice bonus, it's survival currency. Children learned through observation, not through lectures, not through books. They watched father build an igloo once, twice, 10 times, then tried themselves. Mistakes? They happened, but small mistakes in childhood, better than a fatal mistake in adulthood. Girls learned sewing from mothers. First stitches crooked, holes large, but each time better. By teenage years, a girl could sew an Atigi that sustains life. This isn't a hobby, it's necessity. Old people? The most valuable resource. They remembered the winter 40 years ago when ice broke early. They knew where previous generations' caches were. They remembered which stars point north when clouds cover everything else. Losing an old person is like losing a hard drive with critical data. Irreversible knowledge loss. So the old were fed first during famine, not from kindness, from pragmatism. Their knowledge was worth more than their calories. Knowledge transmission? Oral. Stories by the Kulik. Myths about ancestors. But in these myths, real instructions. When the raven cries 3 times, ice is thin. This isn't superstition. This is experience encoded in narrative. And mistakes? they were told about too. My grandfather's grandfather didn't check the comic seam, lost 3 toes, not for fear, so they'd remember, so they wouldn't repeat it. The smell of learning, smoke from the kulik, fur where children sit, hands showing how to cut sinew, a brain absorbing information that one night might save a life. But knowledge is useless if you don't share what you've obtained.
Here's the Arctic rule. A selfish person dies, always. Why? Because nobody can survive alone. You get sick, who hunts? Your harpoon breaks, who lends you one? Your wife dies in childbirth, who feeds the children? Inuit society was communism, but not by ideology, by necessity. Everything valuable was shared, not fairly, not by merit, by need. Here's the Arctic rule. A selfish person dies, always. Why? Because nobody can survive alone. You get sick, who hunts? Your harpoon breaks, who lends you one? Your wife dies in childbirth, who feeds the children? Inuit society was communism, but not by ideology, by necessity. Everything valuable was shared, not fairly, not by merit, by need. Killed a whale? Meat is divided by established protocol. The hunter who struck first gets a certain portion, the harpoon owner another. But old widows also get some, orphans too. Even the man who broke his arm and couldn't hunt, he gets some too. Why? Because next time it might be you with the broken arm. It might be you who lost your wife. It might be you who's old and weak. The system ensures everyone, as long as everyone contributes when they can. But this isn't altruism. It's calculation. A community that cares for the weak survives longer. A community where people die because they didn't earn it dies out within generations. Trading was also critical. You have extra caribou fur, but no whale fat? You trade. Not for price, by need. Today, I give you fat. Next year, you give me a harpoon. Nobody keeps score, but everyone remembers. And greed? Social death. If you hide food when others are hungry, they won't kill you. They'll just ignore you, won't help, won't share. And when you get sick, break a leg, lose your harpoon, nobody comes. You die alone, slowly. The smell of communal food, blood, meat,
fat, shared among dozens of people. Children eating raw liver, the old sucking bones. Everyone together in one igloo, because heat insulation is better when there are many bodies. But even the tightest community needs structure.
In the Arctic, there's no time for debates about gender roles. Everyone does what's critically important for survival. Men hunt. Why? Not because of culture, because of physiology. Hunting requires lots of calories, standing on ice for hours, chasing whales, dragging carcasses. Male bodies better generate heat during activity. Women have a harder time maintaining temperature during extreme loads. Nature isn't fair, it's pragmatic. Women process hides, and this isn't light work. It's the most critical work. Poorly processed hide, wet clothing. Wet clothing, death. A woman who skillfully processes hides is valued more than an average hunter, because hunters without quality clothing won't survive.
The processing? Hide is scraped with bone scrapers for hours. Arm muscles burn, then softened by chewing, literally. Women chewed hides to make them flexible. Teeth worn to gums by age 40. There are no dentists. Pain is part of life. Children? Not cute babies. They're labor from age 5 to 6. Boys help fathers, repair tools, feed dogs. Girls help mothers, care for younger siblings, collect dry roots for insulation. Old men who can't hunt anymore, they make tools, carve bones, repair harpoons. Their hands tremble, but experience is priceless. They know how to balance a shaft perfectly. Old women, they teach, show how to sew, how to check seams, how to determine fur quality. They're the university, living archive of technologies. Nobody asks, is this fair? Fairness is when everyone's alive in spring. Unfairness is when someone died due to incompetence. The smell of work? Women. Scraped hides, fat, sweat. Men. Blood, fish, dogs. Children. All of the above. Plus urine, because there's no toilet. Just step outside the igloo and come back quickly. But even a perfect role system isn't enough without psychological resilience. The strongest enemy in the Arctic isn't cold, not
Inuit hunger. It's monotony. It's darkness. It's isolation. Polar night. From November to January, the sun doesn't appear. 24 hours of darkness. Every day. For weeks. Your brain starts breaking. Depression, anxiety, psychosis. Without strategies, you go insane. The Inuit solved this through stories. Every evening by the kulik, tales, myths about Siirnaq, goddess of the sea. Stories about Raven the trickster. Legends about grandfather's hunts. This isn't entertainment. This is psychological hygiene. Stories gave structure to time. They gave hope. Our ancestors survived. We'll survive. They gave identity. We are Inuit. We're stronger than ice. Songs and dances, also critical. Drums from walrus hide. Rhythmic movements. This produced endorphins. Physical activity in confined space. It's like a built-in antidepressant. Only it runs on drums and movement. Shamanism? Not magic. A psychological tool. The shaman entered trance, often through rhythmic breathing, drums, sometimes hallucinogenic mushrooms. He communicated with spirits, found lost hunters, healed the sick. Did it work? Sometimes. Not through magic. Through placebo effect and communal belief. If the whole community believes the shaman can help, the brain produces endorphins. The sick person feels better. This isn't deception. This is using psychology for survival. Games were also critical. Men competed in strength games. Who can hold a heavy stone longer? Who can build a mini igloo faster? This is training, but disguised as fun, like gamifying fitness, only 3,000 years ago. Children played with miniature harpoons, with toy kayaks, with dolls in Atigi. This isn't cute. This is preparation. A girl dressing a doll is learning to dress a child. A boy throwing a toy harpoon is training muscle memory. The smell of evenings in the igloo? Many people in small space. Sweat, smoke, fur, breath. But also laughter, songs, a sense of community. This is the smell of what keeps you sane when outside is darkness and -40. But all these social structures relied on physical tools. In the Arctic, there's no Home Depot, no Amazon Prime. If you need a tool, you make it yourself from what's available. What's available? Bones, antlers, stone, ice. Sometimes, if very lucky, driftwood carried by ocean for thousands of miles. Needles, the simplest but critical tool. Thin bone, a bird or fish rib, sharpened at one end, whole at the other. How do you make a hole in bone without a drill? Patience. You rotate a sharp stone for hours. Literally. One needle, a day's work. Knives, walrus bone, caribou antler. If lucky, a tiny piece of meteoric iron. The Inuit found meteorites and knew this stone was harder than anything else. They chipped off pieces, made blades. It's like finding a USB drive with secret technology in a world where computers don't exist. Harpoon points? Walrus, the best bone, strong but flexible. You carve the shape with a stone chisel for days, then sharpen on stone for hours. Result? A point that can pierce seal hide and hold in blubber. Hide scrapers? Flat bone with sharp edge. Or stone, flint if you can find it. Women used them daily, wore them out, replaced them, made new ones. It's like a phone. You can't live without it, so you always have a backup. Ice was also a tool. Windows in igloos, thin, transparent ice, cut carefully, inserted into opening, lets light through, but not cold. It's like glass, only it melts in spring. Ice lenses? Yes, the Inuit made lenses. Polished ice into convex form. Used to start fire. Focusing sunlight on dry moss. This worked. Rarely, but it worked. Like using solar energy, thousands of years before solar panels. The smell of a workshop? Bone dust, ground stone, fat used as lubricant, hands scratched from work, blood under fingernails. But the result, a tool that can save life or take it. And all these tools, all these skills relied on one final ability. GPS tells you to turn right. You turn. Don't think. Trust technology. In the Arctic, GPS is your instincts, and if they're wrong, you die. Reading snow. Snow isn't uniform. There's soft snow, fresh, fluffy. There's hard snow, wind compressed. There's old snow, granular, like sugar. There's icy snow, slippery, dangerous. Each type tells a story about weather, about wind, about passage safety. The Inuit had dozens of words for snow, not because they were primitive, because they needed it. It's like programmers have dozens of words for types of errors in code. Specificity saves lives. Reading ice. Color matters. White ice, young, thin. Blue ice, old, thick. Gray ice, water underneath. Black ice might break under you. An Inuit looks at ice for a second and knows, doesn't think, feels. How do they feel? Years of experience, walked on ice hundreds of times, fell through a few times, remembered what ice looked like before falling. Brain recorded the pattern, now reacts automatically. Reading weather. Clouds tell. Certain shape, storm in an hour. Certain color, clear tomorrow. Wind? Its direction changes before a storm, always, if you know what to look for. Navigation? Stars, obviously, but also snowdrifts. They form parallel to prevailing wind. If you know wind direction, you know drift direction. If you know drift direction, you can navigate even in darkness. Sun in winter barely rises above horizon, but its position is predictable. Shadow from vertical stick points north at noon. Don't need compass, need stick and attention. Animals also gave clues. Certain birds fly south, storm approaching. Seals surface more often, weather improving. Ravens cry specially, ice is thin. This isn't superstition. These are empirical observations verified by generations. The smell of weather? Before storm, air has metallic taste, electricity in atmosphere. Before thaw, ocean smell strengthens, salt in air. The Inuit sniffed the wind, like we check weather app. But the most valuable instinct?
knowing when to go home. When hunting isn't worth the risk. When it's better to starve today to live tomorrow. This is instinct that can't be taught, only felt. And those who didn't have it left no descendants. All these systems, social, psychological, technological, instinctive, worked together. One link broke, the system fell. But when all worked, people didn't just survive. They built a culture that existed for thousands of years, in conditions where most modern people wouldn't last a week.
We've come a long way, from igloos to harpoons, from diet to mythology, from tools to instincts. The Inuit didn't have technology in our sense. They couldn't press a button for heat, couldn't order food delivery, couldn't Google how to survive at -40. But they had something more, a knowledge system refined over millennia, where each element supported another, where igloo without kulik is useless, where kulik without Atigi isn't enough, where Atigi without harpoon won't feed you, where harpoon without knowledge won't hit. This was a survival system, but also a thriving system. The Inuit didn't just not die. They laughed, sang, told stories, had children, celebrated successful hunts, mourned the dead. They were human, not primitive, not savages, just humans who solved the problem, how to live where others cannot. Modern civilization forgot much of this. We have heating, but forgot how to build igloos. We have supermarkets, but don't know which meat contains vitamin C. We have GPS, but can't read snow. This isn't criticism, it's observation. We traded some skills for others. We specialized. But the Inuit were generalists. Everyone had to know everything, because the alternative was death. Their legacy, not in museums, not in textbooks, but in understanding. Humans can adapt to anything, if they have time, if they have will, if they work together. The Arctic didn't get easier. It's still -40. It still kills the careless. But some Inuit still live there. Some still hunt. Some still build igloos, though now they have snowmobiles and rifles. Traditions change, but the essence remains. Respect for nature, respect for knowledge, respect for community. Maybe that's the most valuable lesson. Not how to build an igloo, but why the igloo matters, why knowledge matters, why community matters, why adaptation isn't weakness but strength. Now, as you lie in warm bed, under warm blanket, in a room with heating, maybe you appreciate it a bit more. Maybe you understand how much technology, knowledge, societal work made your comfort possible. Or maybe you fell asleep 15 minutes ago, and that's fine too, because that was the goal. An interesting story that helps you sleep. Write in the comments, what struck you most in this story? Could you live a month as an Inuit? And of course, where are you listening from? And what time is it? Good night, friends. May your dreams be warm, even though the story was about cold.